Welcome to the Entrepreneurial CEO Podcast, where we dive into the real stories behind building and scaling a business. Each episode, we sit down with CEOs, founders, and leaders to uncover hard-won lessons in leadership, systems, and team building. Listen in each week to learn directly from real business leaders who have been in your shoes, had success, made the mistakes, and all of the messiness that comes with building a business. If you're ready to learn from real-world leaders and gain insights you can apply today, you're in the right place. So let's get started. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Mike, good to see you again. Adam, thanks for being here, man.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. Today's guest is Adam Olalde, the founder and CEO of Xtreme Xperience. They're the world's largest provider of supercar, driving, and lifestyle adventures. Adam launched his first event in 2012, putting people like me and Mike behind the wheel of Lamborghinis, Ferraris, and McLarens, which is amazing, and has since grown tremendously. The business is now doing over $30 million in annual revenue across 40 different racetracks, all powered by his proprietary The Pursuit growth framework, which I want to learn more about. Beyond the thrills, Adam's built awesome, rigorous safety protocols, customer feedback loops, and a culture that treats every event like a championship race. So Adam, thank you so much for being here, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And the way you summed it up, we need to write that down and put that on the site. That's what we do. That's what we did, you know. We created an industry. I didn't know I was doing it. I didn't mean to do it, but we've had a lot of fun, and I look forward to doing more of it.
Yeah,
dude, that word autotainment, like I saw that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty cool word, bro. I like the way you put that together.
Well, there wasn't a word for it. I mean, if you think of something that the world needs and it doesn't exist, then it's time for you to create it. That's what we did.
Love that.
So before we fire into all the questions, anything to add about yourself, how the company got started, what you're doing today?
No, I mean, I think that it's most important to understand that we really focused on creating something that didn't exist because people asked for it. You know, they always say, see a need, fill a need, right? I was young. I got into the luxury concierge business. I was renting out luxury cars here in Chicago for birthdays and special occasions, but everybody called and they wanted to experience these things the way they were designed to be experienced. And that's not on the highway. That's not with years of racing school. That's not when you have $1 million in the bank. That's today. That's your someday should be today. And they kept calling and they were like, can you be the guy that makes someday today? And I said, you know what? Challenge accepted. So in late 2011, that's when I was getting the phone calls. So in 2012, we officially launched it. And we said, if we can stick this together, we can keep people safe and we can have fun, then we can deliver on that promise. And we haven't looked back. So those are the feels. Yeah. Let's dive into how we did it.
What were you doing prior? So you were doing this personal concierge. Was that your business? Were you working for somebody else? How did that start?
I was working for somebody else. After school, I got into a sales gig here in the city, and I just happened to run into people when you're out networking. And this guy was like, hey, my roommate and I are going to start this luxury car rental business. And I said, okay, 23 years old. I got nothing to lose. Sign me up. Dude. And so, you know, right? Like ignorance is bliss or whatever all the different sayings are. So I said, sign me up. The world, corporate America will always be waiting for me. I'm willing to give this a go. And when I showed up, he said, great. And by the way, no pun intended, here are the keys. Go ahead and run the shop for me while I go do other things. And so I had to immediately build operations. I had to build the team. I had to build the maintenance of all these things and the relationships to both acquire and service and deliver them. And then all the marketing, the go-to-market strategy with it. And so I got a crash course in how to run a business in the car industry. And so it was kind of natural that this is where it could go and where it did go.
You learn so much more doing that than going to business school, right? Like you're actually doing the work and learning and, you know, trial and error.
I'm a proud graduate of Miami of Ohio, and I look fondly. Yes, Ron Harper. I went to school with Roethlisberger. So I look fondly. I'm sure he says the same about me, but I look fondly at my time there. But the crash course I got in the real world running a business is what ignited all of this, and is still a feeling that I try to turn around and return to college kids when I go back and I teach courses to high school and college kids about entrepreneurship and say, hey, you know, if your eyes wander, let them wander. Let them ask questions about what's out there or what isn't and what needs to be created and pursue that.
Like, you know what? Just to jump in, Adam, I love
Mhm.
that philosophy because I don't know if like there's the debate between nurture and nature. Like, are you born an entrepreneur, not born an entrepreneur? But I tell when I speak and teach at different schools, I'm always the same way. I'm like, listen, if you're thinking about starting a business, do it and start it now in college when you have, access to advisors for free, access to employees, access to resources. I mean, like everybody wants to help a college kid starting a business. So, and these kids that just they go to college and they go get their MBA and they're like, I'm going to New York or Wall Street. It's like maybe they could have had that bug if they would have tried something in between to just figure out if they want to be an entrepreneur.
It's
So I don't
amazing
know.
how quickly time goes. I turned 40 a month ago today, actually. And I look back now and I'm like, holy smokes, I'm not a kid anymore. I was 27 when this whole thing started.
Yeah.
But thank goodness that I took a chance at 27 so
Mhm.
that I had the time to build it so that by 40 now I'm in a place, which I'm sure we'll dive into. What am I going to do next with it and where's it going? All that type of stuff. But, you're never too young to start a business, but you're also never, or I'm sorry, you're never too old to start a business, but you're also never too young. So
Mhm.
just take a chance.
Well, the people, I think I totally agree. And when you're younger, you have the luxury of, I think less risk, right? You don't have all
Yeah.
those things that 40-year-olds or 50-year-olds have in terms of dependencies and costs and all those things, right? Man, you're 20 years old. You can take those shots. Take a couple
Totally.
shots.
Yes. You break some stuff, move fast, break stuff. It'll repair itself.
So how did you validate? So you started this thing. How did you validate the concept and realize that you had something real with this business?
In late 2011, when I was still with the concierge company, the rental company, I hosted my first customer acquisition event, and that's what I guess what I'm calling it. I rented a racetrack. I borrowed a bunch of supercars from everyone I knew who had some, and I marketed it as a driving experience, but part of the concierge business, in hopes to get a bunch of customer names and email addresses and market the concierge business to them so they'd come back and rent the higher price ticket items. And when I did that for the first time, I think I charged $150 or so, but 1,000 people showed up. And I was like, that's a lot of people. What if I charged a little bit more, made it a little bit bigger, brought a few more cars? And so I did it again a couple months later, and 3,000 people showed up. That was all the validation I needed. I said, it's here. They are telling me that to figure it out because it's here and it exists. And so over 10 years, that's what we've been doing, 10 plus years.
Wow.
So you spun out of the concierge business and you just said, I'm out. I'm going to go start this new business.
The concierge business, while a cool concept and a cool thing to be a part of, uh, at the time was just people would bring back these rented cars and they would be missing bumpers and they would be hours late and there'd be drugs in the center console. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. So to create an experience where I create the box and let you have all the fun you want to inside of the box, but I've got the safety protocols and the cars and the booking and the customer service and all that was way more organized. Of course, it unlocked a whole bunch of new headaches, but regardless of that, it was still a better business model and it was easy for me to walk away from one to pursue the other.
That's great.
Maybe zoom out for a second. For those not familiar, explain the business model. Explain like what the experience is.
Yeah, today, Xtreme Xperience provides supercar driving, racing, and lifestyle experiences nationwide. From racetrack driving experiences to open road tours and rallies to multiple day vacations, we get you behind the wheel of your favorite car with no experience necessary in the most fun and safe and convenient and affordable format that we can come up with.
When when he had restaurants on the run, Mike, and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys found a niche with corporate, right? You weren't going B2C, you were more B2B. Adam, with your business, do you find that you're more B2B? You're doing like these corporate events, or is it really going after consumers and these consumers want the events or experience?
About 25% of our business is B2B. So it exists and we're trying to grow it because we know it's such a big sector. And quite honestly, the market cap is probably phenomenally
Huge.
larger on that. But that being said, last year, 80% of our participants were just regular guys, girls, and kids off the street who had a dream and just wanted to try something cool. So the majority of our marketing and our customer acquisition is all designed to the different personas of individual human beings that want to do cool stuff with cars.
That's cool. I mean, I imagine so I could think of it being like you're going to Vegas, you want something cool to do when you're in Vegas. And so you go like rent a Lamborghini or, do this experience. You can drive a Lamborghini. Is that kind of but then you have those all around the nation.
Right. And it's not even as robust as you have to plan a trip to Vegas where you put caution and money and good decision making aside to go have a good time. We're going to the Pocono Mountains this weekend. We were just in New Hampshire and pretty soon we'll be in Nebraska. So this is for the guy who's got a Porsche in the garage that he never takes out and drives his own because he doesn't want to, break it or get it dirty, to the kid who's got a poster on the wall behind them, to the girl who is like, where do I get involved with cars? There's not many opportunities for ladies, whatever. So we bring it everywhere and we take away that red tape that is often associated with doing cool stuff, doing high pace, experiences, things that are generally conceived to be expensive. However you misconceive what the cars can be, we try to take all that away.
So I'm curious from a business standpoint. So it sounds like you're going to different places. Like you just said, you're going to the Poconos, you're going to Nebraska. Is it not always in the same place? And the second, if that's the case, then what is your marketing engine or like customer acquisition engine? Because you're going to the Poconos. Do you have like a certain amount of time that you have to fill get customers for that event?
Yeah. 100%. And I kind of left that out when I was giving you the elevator pitch. But the way that it works is a whole lot like a concert tour. So we own the talent, which could be looked at as the people and the cars. We own the logistics that ship everything around the country, the trucks and the trucking companies. We don't own the venues. So every year at about this time, and it's end of May, early June, we will contract our entire next year's tour schedule. We will pick venues for one day. If it's a small market, we might be there multiple days, multiple weekends, for a month if it's a larger market. And then we will begin to advertise those dates. So given our ability then to scale the operation without the real estate burden, we just, like a tour, we bring the show to you and we pack it up and we may come back, or that might be it until next year. And so the mobility of our operation has definitely become our kind of competitive advantage.
That's pretty cool.
Good question. So this is incredible. I like your analogy of we're like a concert series or concert tour. How many cars do you actually own, and how many trucks? What's your logistics fleet look like?
We can currently operate in up to 3 cities at one time. So our logistics looks like, I think we have just shy of about 20 rigs, and then we've got about 60 to 70 supercars. And so here in Chicago, the rigs will show up and they will load up with the cars and the tools and everything necessary to go pop open the show. And we can operate from venues as large as Circuit of the Americas, where F1 happens down in Texas, to little tiny, dirt tracks. We won't drive supercars on dirt, but dirt parking lot type tracks in New Jersey or in, Nebraska, like I said. So we bring the whole show and we are completely self-sufficient when it comes to that. So the trucks will come here and then they'll go out and they'll do a few tour stops and then ultimately come back to Chicago to reload.
You said 60 supercars?
At least, yeah.
At least, yeah. And which one do you drive the most?
Along the way.
What's your favorite to drive?
Yeah, I live downtown Chicago. So when I'm home, none of them are my favorite to drive. And I will, plenty of people ask me, for that birthday you just had, what are you buying yourself personally? And I said, well, I live in the city, and between traffic and potholes and dropping my kids off at school, like, these are just a disaster. That being said, they're phenomenal to drive. So when I go to the racetrack, while I have access to them all, a 911 would always be my first choice.
Really?
Okay. I like that.
Oh yeah.
I guess if you're sitting in traffic, it doesn't matter what it is. You're still sitting in traffic.
No, it doesn't. I dropped my daughter off in a Lamborghini the other day, and They don't have ventilated seats. They hardly have air conditioning. It's so low to the ground. I was afraid that, dump trucks were going to drive over me. And then we pulled up to school and 24, middle school boys came out and started surrounding the car. And she was like, "Dad, I don't want anything to do with this. Do not ever bring me to school in this car again." And I was like, "Don't worry. This was quite an experience. This was an extreme experience for all of us. I will leave the race cars to the racetracks, and we'll drive our SUV back to school next time. But on the racetrack, I'll take a Porsche. We've got both the 911 in our fleet, and we've got the GT4 RSs, and hopefully we'll be adding the GT3 RSs next season. So some cool stuff.
Those are pretty cool cars. All right, so you guys have grown amazingly it's been 13 years, but you're now doing over 30 million. That's incredible. As you've grown, how's the team structured today? You have leadership team, management team. How many employees do you have? Talk about the scale of the business and how it's structured as you've grown.
Right, and that's definitely what I've been up to, because in the beginning, the first couple of years, I was just a kid with an idea in my head. So I had to get on an airplane, fly to a racetrack, deliver this idea, immediately get back on an airplane, fly to Chicago, get to the marketing to acquire more customers, and then just wash, rinse, and repeat over and over again for the first couple of years. But then I quickly learned that if I had any hope of scaling the business, I had to get the heck out of the way. And so that's when I started to hire good people to go out there, because now with the geographic footprint from, California to New York and New Hampshire to Southern Florida, like I can't be in those places, and I can't even pretend like I should be able to run the show from Chicago. And so I got to work on the hierarchy. And so today I've got a really great leadership team, as you just mentioned. The cool part is I only have 3 direct reports. And so those, we oversee and we are able to run the company, but I've always been big on vision, right? Because I figured if there were going to be so many people, and it takes to run our operation just shy of 300 people. So that's what I've got on the payroll, to be able to instruct you, to take pictures of you, to deal with customer service issues both out in the field, here in Chicago, marketing, and all the different components of it. I needed to have a really strong vision. And so I was building this leadership team while simultaneously building a vision. And I kind of stole a little bit from Simon Sinek and the whole vivid vision concept. And I said, hey, we're going to make a manageable time frame and achievable goals, but they're going to push us. Then I'm going to actually make this thing physical, and I'm going to hand it out to everybody, so that while I'm building the company with vision and strategy, the people in the field can execute, but we all have agreed on what it is that we're pointing ourselves towards. And so that's how we do it. So now we've got a great leadership team, and we've got the directors who oversee the field managers, and then of course all the field teams of mechanics and race car instructors and guest services people and stuff that actually go deliver the show.
That's fantastic. Across 300 people. Good for you, man. How long did it take you to get to that structure?
Well, the cool part was I was fine with it taking time as long as I identified what the structure was. So I drew it out on a table at my parents' house when I was way back in the beginning. And then I've just spent the next, 12 years filling in the blanks. So I knew what I wanted it to look like, and I knew that I would make this vision repeat itself. We chose a 3-year time window. So every 36 months, we sit back down and we say, how much of the vision did we accomplish? How much of the hierarchy did we fill in? And then what do we have to do over the next 3 years? And that becomes the final page of the vision, and you reverse engineer how you're going to get there over the next 36 months. And then you hand it out to everybody, and then you get going again. So every year we just climb a little bit up the pyramid, so to speak, and we fill in the blanks. But the pyramid itself isn't very different from what we knew it should look like so many years ago. It just had a lot more gaps back then.
Yeah. Is that the pursuit framework, the 3-year growth plan?
Mm-hmm. Yep,
okay.
That's it.
So when you do that, are you then taking that 3-year growth plan and then backing it out into an annual plan and quarterly plans? And how does that get converted into execution for the team on a daily or monthly basis?
We backed it out into not chronological to-dos. I think kind of like an EOS system, or might be a little bit more specific about. We backed it out into categories or concepts. So we had our tune categories, our bolt categories, and our boost categories. And we knew that tune categories were very Kaizen. They had to happen every single day, little by little. Of course, we're in a great industry for analogies, so everything will be car and race related. Bolt-ons would be annual, and then boosts would be over just the course of the entire 3-year program cycle, which could be implementation of technologies, website redesigns, data infrastructure and stuff like that. And so we categorize it into these topics so that every time we sat down, we said, well, what are we talking about that's tuning things today? What's boosting things today, or what's bolting things on today? And then what's ultimately boosting things? And then at the end of every year, we revisit how much progress we made, how much progress we have to go. We hold an annual conference with all the employees, and we whip out our vision booklets, which are physical things. And we talk through what the progress is that we've made, how we feel about it, and then what we're going to accomplish or take on the next year. So that's how we do it.
Love that, dude. So every year you have 300 employees. I was going to ask the same question, Mike.
Yeah, we don't bring them all together. We bring in so a lot of the field employees, we give the winter off, the instructors and stuff like that. So we stream it and we record it and we distribute it. But everybody who is part of the backbone infrastructure that has to report year round, we bring them all together and we fly them all to Chicago and host our thing.
You mentioned EOS. Are you using any formal scale up or management systems like that in your business, or is this just your proprietary system that you've created?
Yeah, we created it. And I mean, here, I got it right here. So I've always been a kind of guy, and for better or for worse, where I surround myself with really intelligent people and really intelligent concepts. And then I just borrow my favorite pieces of them and I build it the way that feels most natural to me. So are there concepts that I miss? And I'm like, darn it, I wish I would have known that earlier. There for sure are in that. But in other scenarios, I can go outside of Traction and I can implement a little Simon Sinek or a little Dave Ramsey, or I can borrow things from other smart people. And so I kind of comprehensively just created the Xtreme Xperience vision approach, and that's how we do it.
Mm-hmm. I think we see that with some of our clients too, right? It's like, with the map system, it's a structured system similar to EOS, different, but it has the same principles. But when we work with clients, like every client's going to be different, right? Every client's business is different. So they may do a little bit flavor to adapt it to how they work internally. And I think that's just natural, right? It has to be something you can work with for every day and for years, right? If it's really going to work and help you improve your business.
Right. I mean, we've got our own accountability matrices and our own KPI metrics. And, we've implemented, I'm going through the process at this moment of implementing a company-wide top to bottom profit sharing program, which is of course tied to those KPIs. Arguably is very similar to Great Game of Business concept. So I'm very familiar with all these things and I've studied them, but I kind of say, but at the same time, we've got some fun, compensation related incentives for our field working employees who are selling t-shirts to little kids that I'm not going to take away. So I want to make sure I can combine some things that work well in the format of our business with bigger, more proven structure to help us, achieve the results that we want to achieve.
Yeah, I was just listening to a podcast over the weekend and they were talking, it was a guy from KKR talking about, he was a big proponent of equity plans or, equity and profit distribution plans for employees. And that it's like, he felt it was the single largest thing a company could do to improve productivity, teamwork, and morale at the company, and also change people's lives, right? Because they get bought in and, if that PE firm then gets sold or exits or whatever, has the power to change those people's lives dramatically. So it sounds like you've got something similar that you're working on there, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, we clearly identified that was just something that we needed to do, and so we're excited to do it simultaneously. And we did, this talk about bolt-on concepts. So we did that, but at the same time, we decided to also install our very own internal leadership management ladder. Or management and leadership ladder. So I looked around at all the different options out there, and we decided to build our own, where there's, entry level management and training, which comes with coursework and access to, execs here at the company, then into supervisory managers and emerging leaders and all the way up to executives. And we just built the whole framework ourselves, and we put in a lot of content and created schedules around it. So we rolled out both the profit sharing with the leadership training to really get people to buy. And I wasn't trying to incentivize anyone to buy in. I was trying to reward them for buying in and saying, hey, this is what happens when you become part of the bigger picture. You can climb the ladder and we'll give you the resources to do it, and you can get compensated likewise.
Hi, if you're a CEO out there who's struggling with focus for your company, aligning your team, accountability, if you're struggling with execution, connecting the dots from where you're at to where you want to be, we've got a great program for you here at MAP. My name is Michael Caito. I'm the CEO. Most importantly, I was a client for 15 years, sold my company to a public company, and then bought MAP so that we can help other entrepreneurs with this specific problem. We're a 60-year-old company. We've worked with 170,000 individual executives and CEOs. We've worked with 15,000 organizations. This is what we do. Click the link below to learn a little bit more about how people just like you, CEOs, have transformed their business and ultimately transformed their life by running through the MAP system.
Yeah, Adam, that's super smart. Like what I found, like when we had our last company, we were the same way. We didn't have it as formal as you do, like a ladder, but we were promoting from within. And what we realized early on is that there was no training for managers, meaning you could sit them next to a manager, you could train them on the job that they do, but when it came to the fundamentals of how to actually how to go from just a newer manager to an extraordinary leader, there's a gap, and I think that's a gap right now. That's why we sent them to MAP, and MAP trained all my people on the fundamentals of management. So what are you doing? What's that look like? Do you have specific management training that you go through, that you
Yeah,
put
we
them through?
do. Yeah, we do. Because I saw that and remember, this is a program I'm rolling out in real time right now. So, we'll
Yeah,
follow up on this in a year and see what I learned from
yeah,
it. But I knew that middle management was exactly where this company would either succeed or fail, because they were the
yep,
ones out there in the field making decisions with the customers in real time. And they had to be able to parlay the vision we all agreed on into the real life, like customer who was about to get behind the wheel of an 800 horsepower Ferrari for the first time. And so
so right.
that was so important. So, I mean, the first level that we created was not even about management, and it's required for managers, but it's also open to any employee who's interested in
Right.
pursuing management and leadership. And it just simply covers time management, personality profiling, accountability and ownership. And it just gets their mindset to say, hey, either you're feeling this way and I can corroborate that's a great way to feel, and here's where you can go with it. Or if you're not thinking this way, it's time for you to start thinking this way. Then we climb to the next ladder, and it's all about managing small teams, right? So think a lot about the Lencioni's of the world, who are talking about the ideal team players and dysfunctions within teams, and how to organize communication and vision and strategy, and how to kind of get that out into your people so that they can trust you. It comes down to candor and trust and all those different things. So that's the second rung of the ladder. The third rung of the ladder is a whole lot more about vision. Now you're talking about you're transitioning from actual management into leadership. And so that's a lot more about making strategic vision, getting people to buy into, or to be able to make more tangible the way they feel about where the company is growing, so that you can produce results that are numeric from it. And all along the way, we've got the educational materials, we've got all the content of the TED Talks and the podcasts and the workshops and the workbooks and stuff like that. And we filter that in, and then we make sure that people from the ladder rung above spend time with people from the ladder rung below to demonstrate that, hey, this is what I've learned, this is how I've grown, and you have access to ask questions. And so we're a small business, but I still think that after a number of years and more employees, people don't walk into my door and say, hey, we were talking vision the other day, but I have some questions about vision. So we're made sure to create opportunities for that to happen a whole lot more as well, so that everybody from, the newest employee to the person who's been here since day one has the same amount of, thoughtfulness and understanding of where we're taking this thing.
Mm. Andrew, it sounds so much. I mean, like, Adam, you're working on the right things as a CEO.
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking about how do you create a culture of accountability, which you talked about with your system that you've implemented, the pursuit growth plan. And then you're also talking about the other side, which is like, how do we develop these leaders? And to me, those are like two of the most important. To me, that's what culture is about. I think about the things that we have to do as a CEO. And I always say there's five. One of them is create a culture of accountability and learning. And that's a big task, but it's pretty, love it.
Well, it's tough too when as your business is growing so fast and you're still working on building that business and growing, to also take the time and have, right? Like, take the time away from that to build out the training protocols and these programs, which are super important because it's going to unlock that next level of growth. So it's incredible that you're doing both. That's awesome.
Yeah, there are plenty of days where I sit here and I go, okay, so do I want to forego some of the infrastructural stuff and just focus on, just just breakneck type of growth where I push people, and then when they fail, I just find new people and we go to new markets or start new product lines, right? And they work 80 hours a week. But I don't know how sustainable that ever is. Or do I want to push growth at a more sustainable pace while building this infrastructure? Because it's amazing, once that infrastructure is implemented and working, the growth that you thought was pushing it becomes organic, and you can push it a little bit more on top of that because suddenly people are trained up more. They know where they're going. They believe in it. So that's how that's my combination is that I've found has worked really well. Push people, give them the resources, grow them, train them, make them accountable. They will suddenly level up to where you were pushing them, and then you can add on. You could push the whole system a little bit more, and it's not really pushing. Then it just feels like ambitious growth.
It's like a flywheel. It just builds on top of each other. Momentum.
100%. We use the term flywheel around here all the time.
Yeah, I got this book. It's a good little small book from Jim Collins, Turning the Flywheel.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
I keep it on my desk.
See, we've all got books on our desk,
You mentioned accountability, man. It's such a big piece, and we talk about it all the time at MAP. What's your accountability system there? How do you hold your people accountable? How do you make sure things are getting done, or because maybe you're not out all these experiences, and there's a lot on the line. So what do you do?
Yeah, a company-wide, and that's I think ultimately the question that we were trying to answer. And so we created the company-wide KPI matrix, right? So every single person in the company had to have 1 to 3 KPIs. Ideally, they were leading indicators, not lagging indicators, because then that would give them the opportunity to be able to make change, real meaningful change. Whether it was something that they saw going on with the car that could potentially lead to it breaking down or being less safe, all the way up to my chief revenue officer is something he sees, something that can change the course of our company in real time, as opposed to Jim just reporting to me what has happened and he cannot change. And so creating KPIs, I started at the top, create them for my direct reports so they could create them for their direct reports, and so on and so forth. And it was when we made that realization that that's what we needed that we said, hey, why don't we just implement the whole profit sharing thing at the exact same time so that people can see that when they can see the direct result and the direct line between them achieving their KPI and them, being rewarded for it.
Love that.
That's perfect. Now, what do they set goals again? What's the frequency of goal setting with all your people? If they have 1 to 3 KPIs, are they setting monthly goals, and how often do you review them?
Well, that's a work in progress. I'll be perfectly honest with you, right? Because as I'm implementing this system, I'm changing things. Most goals are set here around our tour stops. So they're kind of city specific or tour specific, and then that timeline that's associated with them is from now until whenever that activation occurs. But I'm trying to soften that, which is kind of the hard thing, to be like, hey, you need to sell out this market. But at the same time, it's more about the whole picture. Like, did we grow as an organization? Did you decrease the customer acquisition cost? Did you increase the lifetime value of a customer? And so I'm trying to slowly and carefully, without ripping anything, separate those two, because I know that if we can get to a world where we have low acquisition costs, high retention, great cart value, and high NPS scores, and all those things that actually matter at the end of the day, then all the other goals are going to be hit. Selling out a weekend is a lagging indicator, but a lot of things that I just mentioned can be the leading indicators that create the positive infrastructure that will supersede kind of all the rest of this stuff. However, you can't just snap your fingers and change like that.
Okay, so first of all, you just said something that blew my mind. Like, as a CEO, the fact that you sat there and said, I'm looking to lower customer acquisition cost and raise lifetime value. That's like, if you boil it down to what's vital in any business from a shareholder perspective, that's pretty much it. And then you layered in, so we have to have high NPS scores. You said retention. When you say retention, do you mean of employees or clients?
Both, right? Both.
Okay. Dude, that's a really good formula. This is why we do this, Andrew. Like, I'm learning all the
That's-
time, man. Like that,
And
like
your
what?
CAC to LTV is super important. I mean, that's just
yeah.
At
Especially if
some
you want to
point,
sell,
right?
Yeah.
And I think going, Andrew, all the way back to the beginning, you asked me a question. You said, hey, do you do more B2B or B2C? And because we do more B2C, all this stuff matters so much more. I can't be flipping employees. I can't be flipping customers. It's so much work and it takes so many resources to sustain the pace of that. But by servicing our customers, giving them more value, retaining them for longer, it makes our people happier who work here as I look out towards my office over here. And so all those things suddenly became very obvious to me that that's where we need to be taking this. It was just, oh my gosh, that's a mountain to climb. How do we start doing it? And that's where I started just implementing things one little bit at a time.
I wonder, have you looked at the LTV, or I guess it wouldn't impact CAC as much, but the LTV of a B2B customer versus B2C? I wonder if the LTV
different.
is like way higher.
It is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Interesting. So as you're still growing super fast, you're at scale now. If you could wave a wand and optimize one thing in the business, what would it be?
That's a good question.
It is a good question.
Mike, come on.
I mean, the first thing that comes to my head is customer acquisition, right? If 80% of our business is B2C, we're in the consumer business. We're in this almost niche luxury category, or at least disposable income category. So when we get crazy news, when we get volatile stock markets, when we get political noise, it changes how people buy stuff. And so the volatility in our acquisition is all over the place. And then you sprinkle in 40 plus markets on top of that and go, hey, why do people like racing cars in Denver, but I'm not getting the same result in Southern Jersey or Northern Jersey, but Southern Jersey is doing really good. But then I go to Charlotte and it's totally different. So you have there's a lot of variables. And so for us to be able to wave a magic wand or snap our fingers and be able to understand that in real time better, that's be like playing the stock market, but that's in a way kind of what we do. That would be a fun magic power to have.
So volatility is a challenge for you. Then this year must have been a pain in the ass because it's been very volatile.
This year's been crazy. It's been all over the place. Yeah, right. And we've gone through so many different concepts, and you're onto one and it's working, and then suddenly something in the macro world changes, and your whole strategy goes out the window, and you have to start over again from your ad buying to your creative to your marketing language. And so I give a lot of credit to my marketers who are like, well, we'll just crumple that one up and we will start again. But that's the business we're in.
Mm-hmm.
I got so this is fascinating. I want to go off topic or stay on topic, but a little tangent. Do you have, I can just picture this. You've got all these great clients on one side. You've got, the cars on one side. Do you have sponsorships or partnerships that are bringing in money into you, like from some of the big deals? Like, do you ever sell cars on the lot? Like, are you incentivized to pit if somebody buys a Ferrari? Is there anything like that that's going on in your business that creates ancillary revenue that goes straight to the bottom line?
When we started the business, we thought that for sure was the way we were going to do it, right? Get a big enough customer base. And then every time I sell a car or put a logo on a car, it's just good for me. We learned, however, one, that the car manufacturers don't all love what we do, just to keep that PC. Ferrari, McLaren, these are brands that they expect you to see red tape and not proceed. They expect you to have 7-8 figures before you can drive their cars. This is the brand that they're trying to maintain. So for me to come in and say, hey, you want to drive a Ferrari for $400 on a racetrack? That goes against what they would like their customer, their customer to be. It's a lower chance that those are going to turn around and buy Ferraris. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, Nissan GTR, Audi R8, all the Porsches, these brands would love us because people can afford these cars, and I'm getting them access to more customer information about who might be the next purchaser of these cars. So we have worked with some car manufacturers, but ultimately in the last couple of years, I've transitioned my pitch from sponsorship to strategic partnership, and I've been supremely more successful. So now, Monster Energy Drink, who I had not historically gone after, for instance, called us and said, everybody who does extreme stuff drinks energy drinks. We want to be your partner. And so now you could win a chance to drive with Xtreme Xperience by buying a NOS or a Monster Energy at your local Circle K or 7-Eleven. And by the way, then, on top of that, they're going to do client entertainment and appreciate distribution, distributor appreciation days at the racetrack with us. And then suddenly the CEO of Monster wants to come down and drive cars because of how cool is the concept. And this becomes a relationship. And that's so valuable and takes you so much further than just a check from an oil company like my first sponsor ever. And so we're really pursuing and changing that to be more strategic and partnership related.
That's really smart. Yeah, that's awesome.
I love the experiential side of that.
At the beginning of the podcast, you talked about where you guys are going. When you look at the next 3 years or 5 years, what are your goals? What are your big goals, and what keeps you up at night that might get in the way?
And that's a great question, especially right now. And I will speak vulnerably. The last author I'll give a nod to is Brene Brown. Of all the authors, she's one of my favorites. But she, what I think, what I see, 2020s, the early 2020s, were actually kind of a weird boom for all of us. It was a delayed situation. We kicked the can down the road pretty hard in 2020, 2021, and 2022. If we would have had this conversation then, I would have told you I'm selling out events in half the amount of time that I normally would sell out a tour stop. And so for that reason, I'm just going to scale. And then suddenly in 23 and 24, the bottom dropped out on that. Everybody went back to work. The economy changed. And so for a business like mine, they weren't come out to race Ferraris on Wednesdays anymore. This suddenly was something they had to save up for. They had to come out and do it on a Saturday. And so it changed a little bit about how I was trying to grow. We got smart and we snipped some stuff. We snipped some stuff that had a negative ROI that was draining my employees' ability to deliver. It was taking more time for less results. And I said, hey, let's put the power back to the core and vital organs here. And let's let my people focus on what the customers want. They want to drive specific cars in specific cities on specific days of the week for a specific price point. And that was something I always said. I needed to make sure that this remained attainable. So I cannot continue to raise prices. I will not continue to raise prices. But can I increase the lifetime value? Can I get you to come back? Can I have things for your kids and your wife to do while you're driving race cars? And so I really slowed the whole thing down and I focused on the strength of my team and the value of my customer. And so by doing that, I didn't have to do more stuff. I could do better stuff. Mm-hmm. And that would allow me to grow the company. And so in 23 and then all of 24, I started working on all the stuff that we've been talking about for the last 40 minutes, making my team stronger, getting them to share in the mission and the vision with me, and then to go and to parlay that out to our customers so that they felt the same way and started to come back more and bring their friends and share and buy more at the racetrack and all that. We started to get to a point where our customers would be upset if they bought a ticket for a Lamborghini and when they were there, they also wanted to drive a Ferrari. I had to say no because they were like, well, hold on. I want to drive more cars. I want to give you money to drive more cars. And I had to be like, well, you got your car, but now someone else got to drive the next car. So we invested in more cars so I could say, yes, Andrew, I know you had a great time. And I know that part of the value to you is that you made the trip, you brought your friends or family and you want to drive more. I'll take your money, but I have the option here for you to be able to do it. And that mattered to our customers as we watch NPS scores rise and customer satisfaction. So does my employees, internal NPS scores and their connection to the brand. And of course, that ultimately their retention. So long story long, I slowed down on the do more stuff and I increased to get more value. And as that's working, it's allowing my team to see their strengths, to uncover what they can do more of. And as we start to strategize for the 26 and 27 seasons, guess what? We're going to do more stuff again, but we're going to do it on such a stronger infrastructure that now we're looking at potential acquisition targets. We're looking at international market expansion. And then we're looking at just all the other little things that we can bolt on to our already 50 show, distribution network that'll allow us to create a whole lot more value for ourselves and our customers along the way. And that's a plan I can get behind.
It reminds me, it's like my coach used to talk to me. I was reading some of Andrew and I both had the same coach when we were building the businesses. And he used to talk about as you're scaling your business, your infrastructure needs to keep up with your growth. So you're going too fast if the infrastructure isn't keeping up and you can maintain those KPIs and leadership development and things like that. And it's another way to think about it, because as entrepreneurs, we get, we really want to race fast, no pun intended. And at some point you have to have that growth you have to have the infrastructure growth to maintain the scale. So
I mean, it's funny you say that, right? Because I'll never forget going in the pandemic or coming out of it, or we were around there somewhere. And I was doing a walk and talk, little Steve Jobs with my coach. And he was like, what keeps you up at night? Same exact question. I said, attrition, whether it's my cars that break down or my people that break down. I've got the business, but they're not going to make it. And so, I learned to take a deep breath, slow down just a little bit, let the infrastructure catch up. And in our business, I even try to actually invest a little bit so that the infrastructure exceeds the demand to a certain degree, so that then we can springboard right off of our results, and we can overachieve, and it won't actually feel like we've, overextended ourselves simultaneously.
Mm.
Yeah.
So we always ask guess one question on the podcast. I think you've already answered it, quite frankly, but I'm going to ask it anyway. MAP's all about action, management action program. Is there something that you guys do that's unique, or process, system, whatever, habit, that others listening might be able to take back and put into their business and improve?
Yeah, I probably answered it a bunch of different times.
Yeah, I think you did.
Well, and it's kind of weird though. Like, I either answered it a bunch of different times or I never answered it, because in a way, I'm at least an honest enough entrepreneur to be like, hey, I didn't invent anything. I discovered and I organized and I produced, a business on top of a lot of concepts that have been available for a long, long time. But they did help me kind of substantiate the way I felt about how businesses should be run. And so I guess if I had to pick one, the one that I've really stood behind has been my vision creation. It's always been my reverse engineering of where we're going to be, and really visualizing that is where, visualize where you're going to be in a reasonable and achievable, but also audacious scenario, and reverse engineer it, share it, and distribute it throughout the organization until there are no questions that remain, and then go execute on it. And I will continue. I've done it many, many times, and I will continue to do it because it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is a key reminder. Set that vision. We had a guy on the other day named Ken Goodrich, who built a company called Ghetto HVAC and plumbing. And every 3 years he does a 1,000-day plan, he calls it. And so, because 3 years is 1,000 days, and he does the same thing, reverse engineer it. And it's so easy. The concept is so simple, but most people don't do it. So this is a great reminder.
If you stand at the bottom of the mountain wondering how you're going to climb to the top, you will never start climbing. You will be overwhelmed by the possible paths you could take. But if you envision yourself at the top going, this is how I got there, then you'll start climbing right away, because you have already envisioned yourself there. I grabbed one. I had one on the floor next to me. This is literally what we made. And I always start with the last page. And the last page always, this is where we're going to be. This is where we're going to be in 3 years. And then all the other colorful pages in between are just going to show you all the ways that we're going to get there, all the different steps, all the different departments where everybody fits in, all the way back to the beginning, which is where we are today. And it's all in here, just a little 6 or 8 page color booklet. And we've been doing it since the beginning. And I'm going to never stop doing it.
That's really cool, man. Love that.
That is awesome.
That's my takeaway.
I love that you have a book.
Yeah.
We got to get one of those books.
It's got, if your vision isn't at least somewhat tangible, even if it's all computer generated images at the back because you haven't done it yet, that's okay. But now it's real. I can touch my vision. I can create it.
Yeah. This is awesome, man. Adam, thank you so much for spending the time with us. We appreciate it. Where can folks go to learn more about the business or about you?
Check us out on all the social media platforms. XX Speed, the Xtreme Xperience. We've got a few URLs just in case your spelling is off, but check us out on the internet, www.xxspeed.com. You can, of course, look me up on LinkedIn and anywhere else if you want to connect and have a chat. I'm always open for it because we're always learning and growing from each other.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will see you next time.
Great takeaways. Stay focused. Thanks, Adam.